So yeah, so in last class we discussed exception handling. Okay, today we will discuss collections. Okay, so basically there are two types of collections. Collections. The name itself is giving the meaning. Okay, some collection, some group of values. Okay, basically we have two types of collections. So one is primitive, primitive collections. So we should not say it as primitive, but primitive collection we should not say. Primitive data type, primitive data type collections. So technically we call it as arrays. Similarly, we have one more type of collections, referenced or non-primitive. Non-primitive collections. Primitive collections or non-primitive collections. Okay, so by looking at the name only, you have to understand that some collection of data, some collection of data, some group of data. Okay, so if you observe in our classes, if you take any example from this, from these packages, so let me open encapsulation. So whatever the data we have, okay, whatever the data we are passing through variables, we are passing that data as a single data. Only one single data we are passing at a time. So if you observe here, this is a single data. This is also a single data. This is also single data. Okay. When you are passing some parameter, that is a single. It is holding only single data. But I want to pass some group of numbers. Suppose let's take, I want to pass 10 customers balance at a time. 10 customers withdrawing money at a time. Okay. Otherwise, if you take some calculator, so here you are passing some numbers, right? I want to perform on a group of numbers, addition operation on a group of numbers. How we can do that? Okay. So if you want to pass some group of values instead of single value, okay, when you are assigning some value to any primitive data type or non-primitive data type, let's take, this is also reference data type, but still you are setting only one value, one object only. Okay. So if you want to pass some group of values, we have two types to pass the values. One is primitive data type collections, that is arrays. Okay, so technically we call it as, so not technically, so in these primitive data types you can store only that type of data. For suppose if you take our examples, if you are taking integer, if you are taking as integer, you can store only integer. Okay, if you take string, you can store only string, right? Other value you cannot store. Again, you have to do the typecasting for numbers. For string, you have to convert into the numbers using wrapper classes. Like that, you have to follow. Okay, similarly, whenever you are creating some, whenever you require to store some group of values into a single variable, in this case, the type, whatever we define, that type of values only we can store into that particular collection, that particular array. Okay, to differentiate non-primitive and primitive, we have two different names. One is arrays. Let me create one package arrays. Okay, example, let me take one class arrays example. So let me rename it Okay. So earlier, if you want to store some values, okay, how we are storing? Some int a equals to 100, right? Let's take it for example. Int b equals to 200. Int c equals to some 300. So for each and every value, you are creating a separate variable, right? But my requirement is, so these collection of values, this group of data, these three values, I want to store into a single variable. How I can do that? Okay, to do that, we have one notation, that is arrays notation, primitive data type notation. So the same thing you can assign into a single variable, int a1 equals to, you can put a curly brace like this, 100, 200, and 300. So it is a collection of data, right? It is a collection of data. To represent the collection of data, so you have to use square brackets, which means within this square bracket, these values will be stored. These values will be stored into some box kind of memory. Okay, so let me show you that how it store the values into the memory in the backend. 1 second. Yeah. So let me reset this canvas. Okay, when you store multiple values into a single variable by representing these symbols, square brackets. So in the backend, the values will be stored in this format. Okay, in this format. Let me some array, some blocks. It will arrange for your values. So you assigned 100, 200, and 300. Okay, for this location, you given the name as some A1. Okay, so this A1 represents this memory. Okay, by default, it won't directly store any value into this variable. Okay, like object, it will also have some address. Okay, some address. Okay, so this address means it is a memory address. Okay, this represents this memory location. So while allocating memory based on the count of numbers, based on the length of numbers, we have three, right? Three numbers. Count is three. Number of elements in this array is three. So for each value, it assigns index. Okay, 0. Always index starts with 0. For this, it assigns 1. For this, it assigns 2. Why it is assigning these indexes? So if you want to access the values one by one values, if you want to access 100, you can use A1 of 100. Okay, so it is stored like a, it is stored like this. In the backend, it is stored like this. 100, 200, and 300. Okay, so for these, it is assigned as a value says index is 0. For this it is 1, and for 300 it is 2. Okay, 3 values we have stored into the array. So these 3 values, for these 3 values, it is assigned the indexes like this. So if you want to if you want to access the values from this list, how you can access? How you can access? It's very simple. If you want to access first element, simply you can use a1 of 0. So for let me put it as ARR, array 1, ARR, array of 0. If you want to print it, you can print like that. So if I run it, the first element will be printed. It's very simple. See, 100 is printed. Similarly, if you want to access the second element, you can use index 1. The first element always stores into the 0th index. Third element, you can access with the index 2. So you can store into a single variable. While accessing, you have to provide the index of that value. Okay, so here I want to add one more array, array 2. So this is a integer type of array, right? Integer type of array. If I want to store some float value, it won't accept. Okay, it won't accept because integer array, integer array we have. It won't accept. It won't accept other values. Other values. Other values. That is the reason it is called as homogeneous. Homogeneous means it accepts only same type of value. Same type of values. Homogeneous. Okay, so here if you declare as int, you can store only int values. If you declare as float, you can store only float values. Similarly, long and double, byte, short, boolean. You can create any type of array. String array you can assign. So if you create string array, you can store only string values. Okay, so you can declare like this also. So you can put after the variable or after the data type also you can specify the bracket. But if you specify like this, or if you specify, so that's on depends on your interest. Okay, so you can store only string values. Okay, you cannot store integer or float values. Character also you cannot store because it is an integer type. Let me put it as integer array. Okay, you cannot store again other type of values. So only it accepts homogeneous values. See, so I want to create some memory like this. Suppose int a you can declare, and after some time you can also assign the value. right? So A is already there. Let me put it as A1, right? So if you want to allocate some memory, and if you want to store the value, if you want to store the value later, after some time, after performing some other operation, how you can store? It's very simple. Int, you are declaring as array, int arr, int array 3. You can create using new keyword. How we are creating memory for the objects, I mean classes. Similarly, you can create using new, just put int, put the square brackets. For how many values, for how many values you want to allocate the memory. Size you have to declare here. If you want to store 3 values, put it as 3. So here size is fixed. Whenever we say primitive, which means fixed. Okay, so whenever you allocate the memory, that time the memory is fixed. So here also, if you want to allocate memory for some group of values, you have to mention the number of elements also. How many number of elements you want to store. Initially only you have to declare. So now you can store up to you can store up to 3 values only. How you can store? It is again simple. Okay. So how you are accessing with the index only you are accessing, right? So here, so just put the equals to symbol, put the values. Simple. It's very simple. It's very simple. You can assign if you want to access the values. Yes, you can print. So here in the error of 3, even 3. Okay, if I run it, see why here it is taking 0, 0, 0. Okay, here I have assigned, okay, 3 we have to assign, right? Into the tree array, we have to assign the values, and also index we have to change 1, and this is 2. If you run it, values will be printed 1000, 2000, and 3000. So suppose you created only 3, for 3 elements only you have assigned the values. Suppose if you try to assign one more value at index 3, which means fourth value as a 4000, what you will get? So immediately you will get the exception. See, array index out of bounds exception, which means, so you created only 3 values, which means there are up to 2 index only we have elements. But you are trying to put one more value, but there is no memory space to add this value. So index 3 out of bounds, which means it is not created the memory for index 3. It is created only up to 2. And also here you are accessing 3 elements, right? So if you try to access third index, so index 3, let me comment this. Again, you will get the array out of bound index exception, because at index 3, here, there is no value, there is no index at all. Okay, so here the size is fixed. You have to know the size if you want to access the array elements, and also if you want to assign also you have to know the size. It is a fixed type of values. Okay, so not only into primitive data types. Suppose if you are creating a class, so we created array examples, right? Arrays example. If you create, so here how we are creating like this, right? We are creating. So if you want to create a array for your class also, okay, for suppose array example array. Okay, how we have to do new, how many values you want to as in 3 values. So now how many objects you can store? See, what I do is array example. Just let me put it as ER of EX. I will create 3 objects. Okay, 1, 2, 3. So here you can assign these 3 objects into this array because it accepts only this type. This is 0 equals to, you can directly assign this, or you can store the references also. Store the references as well. These array of objects, like array of elements, array of objects here. 0, 1, and 2. Okay, you can store only these objects. Okay, so here if you create another array, if you want to store the values instead of providing the index, what you can do is here, instead of allocating the memory separately, here you can put the curly brace. So these references or these objects you can directly put here, or you can directly create the object. You can declare in 2 ways. One is allocating the memory. After allocating the memory, assigning the values. Or if you want to assign at a time, you can also at a time you can add the values like this. Okay. Yeah. So now how we can access the array elements? Okay, by index we are accessing. Suppose let me take one array, integer array. Let's take integer array only because it is easy to use. Int array of 4. Okay. So here I'm assigning values 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. There are total 10 elements. So if I want to print these one by one value, what I have to do? So I have to follow this notation, right? Here 1 or 0. Okay. This is error of 4. So let me change the index for each element. Okay, total 10 elements up to 9 index only you can access. Okay, if you print, okay, all these numbers will be printed. Okay, so here only you are getting the array index out of bound exception, where here you are getting exception. Which exception you will get? Array index out of bound exception. So let me run it. See, 10 values are printed. So here you are performing the same operation, but you are just changing the values. We are changing the index. Whenever we are performing the same operation multiple times, if you are performing, instead of writing your statement like this, use a for loop. Just use for. Okay. So how many times you want to loop this? Okay. I want to loop. First, I want to take the length of elements. Okay. If you want to check how many values in the array, you can use length. Length method or length keyword you can use. length of an array. You can use length. So I want to perform up to my length 10 elements. Okay, my index should start with int I equals to 0. Okay, my index should start with 0 because we are using 0. And my index should ends with 9, which means I should be less than 10, right? I should be less than 10. Less than 10 means 9. Up to 9 numbers, 9 index only it has to do. Increase the I value. So now, if you use the print statement, just instead of putting the hard-coded value, you can provide the I also. Variable also you can pass. Using for loop. See, using for loop also you are able to length you are getting 10 elements you will get length. Okay, there are 10 elements, that is the reason you are getting 10. But index is 9 only, max index is 9. Using array, you can print. Okay, the purpose of for loop is whenever you are performing a operation multiple times, you can use the for loop. Okay, so generally in interviews, they will ask you the questions. Okay, suppose if there is a array like this. Okay, so they will ask you to print even numbers or odd numbers. They will give some random numbers, and from there they will ask you to print even numbers or odd numbers. Sometimes they will give you the string, and they will ask you to just print what are all the words starting from the some like alphabet. Okay, most of the time you will get the questions on arrays only, interview questions especially. On arrays only they will ask. Okay, interview questions part there I will explain how to work with again arrays. Okay, so prim2 data type means you can assign only prim2 type. Okay, suppose if you create a object array, this is very, very important. Okay, please concentrate on obj array. Okay, so you can store, if you create object array, what you can do in object generally, what are the values you can store? If you want to store 10, it accepts. If you want to store 10.f, I mean 10.5 float, it accepts. String also it is accepts. String also it accepts, right? Any value you can store into the object. Okay, here instead of passing home, making as a homogeneous array, what you can do, you can assign any type of value. Okay, first I will store true, 10, 100, character, 1000, 1000, 100.5, f, and 10,000. And the W value is, what is the W value? Some 1000 dot some 56 d. And I want to store string also. Hello. Okay, if you take the object array, you can store any value. But whenever you are getting the values from the array, okay, so that time you will get the value as object, not other value, not like boolean, not like byte, short like that. You will get as a object. That case you have to again convert into your own required type. You have to do the type conversion again. Okay, so here for each and every value, I want to add some 5 and I want to print it. Okay, here. So let me print this. See, it is adding 5. The same thing if you do with the object array. Suppose if you take the same here, but I want to take it as a object array. So if you use the same for loop, But if you do this operation, okay, let's see what it is doing with object array, not length. With object array. Okay, so let me run it. Okay, still it is taking. With object array also directly it is taking. Okay, so object by default, if we assign these values, okay, but try to store into some variable int some x equals to, just store this value. So here also, let's see, but let me explain. So x plus 5. Let's do this. So here it is working fine. Okay, but the problem is, suppose if you pass the value like this. Okay, so I should take it as object. That is the reason it is allowing you basically. I forgot it. Okay, so let me put normal 100. So here also there is no issue, right? You are not getting anything. So let me take this value as 100. But while assigning, you will not get any error here. So and also what I have to do. So so there are some mistakes. Let me, yeah, see. So now see, yeah, now see. When you are directly trying to store the object type of value to integer, it is not allowed. In this case, what you have to do? So you have to convert into your own data type. See, when you use int, it is converting. Otherwise, it won't convert. Okay, so you have to explicitly pass the type conversion. Suppose if you pass the value like this, again it will not convert. See, you will get the error again. Class cast exception. It is a string. You converted it into object, that is fine. In the object also it stores as a string. But when you are trying to convert into integer, it will give you the error. Okay, so here, whenever you create array, okay, it is a homogeneous array. But when we have this object kind, if you want to store any kind of values, we have different collections. Those are non-primitive or referential collections. These are very, very important. So using which you can simplify your operations. Okay, those are user-defined collections. Somebody have implemented it, okay, in Java. So those we have to use in our programming as per our requirement. As per our requirement, we have to use. So what are those collections? Okay, so here, let me, okay, yeah. So let me show you one like non-primitive collections. What are all available non-primitive collections? Yeah. See. So we have these many non-primitive collections. Okay, non-primitive collections means. So let me explain about the collections. Okay, first I show the disadvantages or limitations of arrays. Okay, arrays. First of all, fixed size. Okay, size is fixed. Beyond that size, you cannot accept the value or you cannot assign the value. Fixed size. And also same type of values only it accepts. It accepts. Same type of values only it accepts. Okay, coming to non-primitive collections. No fixed size. No fixed size. It accepts same type of values means homogeneous values. Homogeneous. Homogeneous values only it accepts. It accepts any value. Okay, any value, which means heterogeneous. More than one type. Hetero means more than one. Okay, heterogeneous. Any type of value. This is homogeneous. Okay, no fixed size, it accepts any value. But in arrays, we have only one method, that is length, to find the length of array. Okay, other than that, we don't have any other methods. But in non-primitive collections, these are user-defined collections. Whenever we say non-primitive, which is created by some other user. Okay, so it accepts any value. Okay, and it is not a fixed size. And one more advantage is with collections are we have methods. So many methods in each class to perform operations on data. Operations on data. Okay, here we have only one method, that is length. But here we have so many methods to perform the operations. Okay, so let's coming to this picture. So we have these many kind of collections. Okay, so like integer array, string array, object array. Similarly, we have list. Okay, set, queue, deck, collection, iterable, priority queue, hash set, linked hash set, sorted set, tree set, stack, vector, See, so like this, we have so many user-defined collections like arrays, using which we can perform the operations on data very easily. Okay, using these collections. So if you want to use these collections are not available in the default package. So by default, we are using all these features, right? Writing classes, writing main method, using primitive data types. By default, we are using all these things. But coming to non-primitive. So these are available in the java.util package. Java.util package. Okay, suppose if I implement, so let's take some functional interfaces. If you want to access into some other packages, go to data access and let's see here. If you want to use some other package, abstraction dot provide access to the abstraction class. It is in abstraction package. Okay, this class is available in abstraction package. For that, you are creating the object or you are extending the class. If you want to do that, you have to import it first. Similarly, these are in other package, right? Similarly, These collections are available in java.util package. If you want to use those collections, you have to import it first. Okay, let me create one package. Okay, package is not class, package. Package name I will create it as a collections. Collections. Finish. So we have collections like like frequently used collections, list, set, map. All these are interfaces. Interface. This is also interface. All these are interfaces. For each interface, there is a child class. For example, if we take our abstraction, where it is abstraction. So here we created abstract class. For this abstract class, so in interfaces itself, I have created interfaces. Interface. I have created full abstraction class. For this, I created implementation class. Okay, and to access this, I have created access interface class. Okay, so similarly, if you want to access the list interface, under this there are some child classes. Child classes are not implementation classes. Those are like access interface classes. Okay, so most frequently used collection is array list. Array list. Most frequently used one. Array list. We have linked list. Okay, this is also to save the memory. Okay, for the faster processing, we have different type of arrays. Linked list. These are data structures concepts. Stack, queue, all these are data structures. DS. You might have aware of it. Okay, so most frequently used collections from the list are array list and linked list. Okay, stack and other one we don't use. Vector and stack we don't use. Coming to the set. Okay, so here, see, if you observe here, if you compare with this example, full abstraction is a interface, but accessing the full abstraction interface, you have a class that is access interface class. Similarly, so here list is an interface to access the list methods or list operations. Array list is a class. It is a class. Linked list also a class. Similarly, for set, we have hash set. Hash set. It is also a class. And linked hash set. This is also a class. Map. It is a, again, under this map, we have most useful things I am explaining. Okay, so map is not under, so if you observe here map is not available. See, map. But that is also we call it as collections. Okay, so map, coming to map. Okay, it is under, again, collection. Map also is under collection. Collection only. Okay, so so here we have hash map. Again, it is a class. And a linked hash map and a tree map. So we use only hash map and linked hash map. Okay, so there is some difference with map. Okay, so all these are collections. All these are under collections interface. Collections interface. This is under collection, okay, and these are also under collection only. Collection. Collection is a interface again. Okay, so most of the time we use these collections: map, list, and set. Along with that, we have one more collection, that is properties. It is also a collection. It is also, but it is not like interface. It is not an interface. It is a direct class. It is a direct class. It doesn't contain any interface. It is a direct class. There is a specialty with this class that I will explain. Okay. So we use these collections to process our data most of the time. 100 to 100% we use this data. Okay, so the advantage with collections are, it is not fixed size, it accepts any value, which means how it accepts, in which format it accepts. So all collections stores those values as a object type. Okay, so here object, it is accepting any type of value, right? When you store the values into these collections, each and every value stores as object. Stores as object. You cannot directly access and process like this. You can like you have to convert like this again. Type conversion. Okay, so let me create some basic collections. This is new. First, I want to create list collection. List collection. If you want to create the list, or if you want to use the list collection, list is an interface. Okay, for what you have to create the object, you cannot create the object for your interface, right? So you can create the object for your child class, that is array list, and you can access the interface methods. See why it is showing errors for these two classes. These two are available in java.util package. Those you need to import. See, it is showing suggestion, import list from java.util package. So it is imported. Similarly, you have array list, import. If these two are from same class, what you can do is you can put star also. It will import all the classes, not only list, set, map, and everything it will import. Or if you want to specify some class, you can specify like this. See, now if you want to add the elements, you can add in two different ways. You can add. So here, earlier we are using square brackets, right? Now you can use parentheses. So yeah, here one thing is, if you want to access the elements, you can access like this. You can access like this. Why it is showing list one? Okay, so directly you cannot access. So it is a class, right? All these are interfaces, right? So in interface, if it is a non-primitive, you can access with square brackets or some other format. But it is an interface. Inside the interface, you will have methods. So here also you have method dot get. You can directly access in this way. So nothing it is printed. You are getting index out of bound exception for this also. Why? There is no element stored into this array. If you want to assign some value to this index, I mean this array, you have method add. Add method you can use. Add the elements to this array. 100. It is printing 100. But if you want to multiply some value, or if you want to do some operation, similarly like +5, if I do this, by default it is giving the error. Why? Whatever the value stored into these collections, if you take any collection, the value will be stored as a object. When you are getting the value also, you will get the value as object. See, it is showing the operator plus is undefined for the argument type object. What you have to do is convert this value to integer. Now it will give you the access. So whenever you are accessing the values from the collection, you have to convert it. So now it will print one answer. Not only list, if you take the set also. So let me do the same thing with set. Okay, set is an interface. Set is an interface. So if you want to access the set, what is the child class? It is a hash set. Create the object for hash set. Okay, so import these two. This one is import and import hash set and add the element to the set. Here also it is same linked list. We have array list. Sorry, hash set. But the problem is if you want to get the values from set, you cannot use set dot get. There is no method in the get. In the set. There is no get method in the set to get the values from the set. Okay. So you cannot use this format. We have another format. Similarly, if you want to create the map, so the name itself is giving the meaning. Map. You have to map to some other. Mapping means generally to import these two. Okay, if you want to add the values to the map, you cannot directly add like this. Set like add, list like add. You cannot add set dot add, list dot add. You cannot add. There is another format to map the values. So mapping is nothing but, suppose if you have 100, you have 200, you have 300. These values, if you want to map with some variables, A, B, C, like this. Earlier we are directly assigning, but inside the collection, I want to store my variable and its value. Okay, now we are using these collections with only one variable, but I want to create a collection with identifier. With identifier means the variable and also its value. So technically we won't call it as variable, identifier we can say. To identify this 100 we have A, to identify B we have A. If you want to add the items to the map, how you can do is dot, we have a method, put method, key and values. Suppose A, if you want to put it as A, I want to store the value as 100. You can assign the value like this. B. C. If you want to get the C value, you can simply get method you can use. Just mention the C. You will get the C value. See, it is printing as 100. So let me make it as 300. And this one, I want to make it as 200. See, not only whenever you are storing into collection, so you can store in any type. You can store in any type, not only string, not only number, you can store in any type of value. That is the main advantage. That is the reason it is a heterogeneous. Okay, if you print 3, it is printing 300, right? Okay, so we have one more collection. See, here we have other collections, right? Linked list also do the same as array list, but there are some differences. Hash set also, the way we are using the hash set, the similar way we can use linked hash set, but there are the small differences in the performance. Okay, similarly, hash map and linked hash map also will do the same. While adding the values or fetching the values, we follow the same thing, notation. But there are some slight differences. Okay, coming to properties. Properties also very, very important. It is a class. Okay, properties. You can directly create the object because it is a class. So this properties class, we cannot directly add the values like this. So this properties class we use if you want to add the values, add the key and value pairs. So here it is a key and it is a value like map. It is also similar to map, but you cannot assign the values. Yes, of course we can assign the values, but basically we use this properties class if we want to assign the values from external file. Okay, if we want to assign the values from external files, we can go with the properties. Okay, so there are some methods. Load is the method. Here you have to use input string. Still we didn't discuss that. We have to import this file input string from IO package. What I will do is, so till we didn't discuss this. Okay, we have one more concept, IO operations, file input output operations. If you want to load, you can directly load the file. Okay, here by default it throws the exception. It is asking to declare in the this level that we will discuss later. Okay, properties we will discuss later. If you want to access the data from external file as a key value pair, so we have to go with the properties. Okay, so how to work with these collections? What are the differences? Okay, what are the differences and how to work with this? We'll discuss in tomorrow's class. Okay, I will stop the session for today. Okay, so it takes a little bit more time. Okay, if I start explaining also, I cannot complete within 15 minutes. Okay, so only collections tomorrow I will explain. Okay, so this is the basic information. So tomorrow, how to add, how to fetch, how to work with the collections, we'll discuss tomorrow. So let me stop the recording.